I'm Mayor Mohammed Igal, Mayor of City of SeaTac. It's 6 p.m. here in Western Washington, July 28, 2026. I'm calling to order for SeaTac City Council meeting. Christina, will you take the roll call, please?
Mayor Mohammed Igal.
Here.
Council members Caitlin Konya. Here. Peter Kwan.
I'm here.
And Joe Benson.
Present.
And we have excused absent Deputy Mayor Sanait Nuguse, Council members James Lovell and Badria Abdullahi.
All right. Okay. So let's salute the flag.
And I'm not sure that we have a flag in here.
We just stand up and
Flag is generally that direction.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, look there. Yes. The first an item in the agenda is the Pro and Con Committee, Agenda Bill 6969, a motion to appoint for members statement for or against. As of today, the city has not received anyone interested in Pro or Con, and the city. Our city manager has the full authority to appoint it if someone is interested to be appointed for the next few days. The next item will be comments, public comments. Do we have public comments?
I don't have the sheet. I'm sorry. There is. Okay.
If anyone wanted to make comments, he or she will be.
Lisa's trying to grab it. We do not have anybody remote or written. We're just waiting for the sheet.
All right.
Sorry about that. Looks like a Dr. Ted Clark.
Ted, welcome. You will have 3 minutes. The podium is here. Someone show Mr. Clark on how to use the microphone, and you will have 3 beautiful minutes. Thanks, sir. You're welcome.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor, council members. I represent Culture Generation. I'm a board member. I'm here tonight to provide a brief update regarding unresolved matters between Culture Generation and Seattle Southside Regional Tourism Authority concerning Culture Generation's World Table trademark, program, name, and brand. As a 501c3 nonprofit organization entrusted with public funding, Culture Generation is committed to complete transparency. Our responsibility is to ensure that the public understands how these resources are being used and the impact they create for the communities. World Table trademark was developed in September 2025 based on a culmination of 20 years of experience and knowledge as a cultural tourism and storytelling program created by Culture Generation to connect the public with immigrant, BIPOC, and underserved communities through cultural experience and community partnership. As part of these matters, addressing these matters, we are seeking clarity regarding how SSRTA became aware of Culture Generation's World Table trademark, program, name, and brand in 2025, as well as questions related to statements presented to City Council in November 2024 regarding Culture Generation's tours, programs, and funding for the 2025 and 2026 culinary tourism work. There may have been confusion regarding Culture Generation's affiliation with SSRTA's International Dining District program because of certain statements made to members of City Council in November 2024. It is our contention that SSRTA incorrectly created false association between SSRTA and Culture Generation in order for SSRTA to be awarded contracts for its International Dining District program for 2025 and 2026. SSRTA disputes this contention, and our respective lawyers are addressing this matter. My purpose in coming here tonight is not to discuss legal matters, but to emphasize transparency and honesty with public funding requiring absolutely accuracy in representing and respect for the community. Culture Generation is in the process of discussing its disputes regarding Culture Generation's World Table brand and program with SSRTA. Questions about this dispute can be fielded by our legal counsel, Tim Billick. Culture Generation is focused on advancing equity.
The 3 minutes is up.
I've got one sentence. Can I finish? Okay. Okay.
We have rules that we cannot go more than 3 minutes.
I just had one sentence.
Thank you very much.
thank
Just submit your written and statement to the city clerk.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. The next item in the agenda will be, because we didn't have watch, so I was wondering, what, 3 minutes to see within 3 minutes? Yeah. So next time we will have watch on the wall. Okay. To be fair to all people. The next item will be presentation for actually Emergency Management Awareness Month proclamation. It will be 5 minutes, and it will be delivered by not other than Council Member Vincent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ooh, sorry. Let's try this again. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the Emergency Management Awareness Month proclamation. Whereas emergencies and disasters can occur unexpectedly, posing significant threats to life, property, and the environment within the city of SeaTac. And whereas emergency managers locally and across all sectors, community leaders, local governments, and the Federal Emergency Management Agency, aka FEMA, dedicate countless hours to developing preparedness, response, recovery, and mitigation programs to protect the lives and property of all persons living within the United States territories, Washington State, and the city of SeaTac. And whereas emergency managers across the state of Washington are charged with establishing and maintaining the capabilities necessary to effectively direct, coordinate, and support emergency and disaster response and recovery efforts. And whereas the mission areas of prevention, protection, mitigation, response, and recovery align with the core capabilities identified in the National Preparedness Goal. And whereas the emergency managers serve the nation by responding to countless emergencies and disasters each year, demonstrating commitment, compassion, and professionalism in protecting the public. And whereas the efforts of our nation's emergency managers have helped millions of community members across the United States recover, rebuild, and become more resilient in the face of adversity. Now, I therefore, Muhammad Iqbal, Mayor of the City of SeaTac, and this is actually Councilmember Joe Vincent on behalf of Mayor Iqbal, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of August as National Emergency Management Awareness Month in the City of SeaTac, in conjunction with the National Preparedness Month in September. With the support of the International Association of Emergency Managers, the National Emergency Management Association, and the Washington State Emergency Management Association, I urge all community members to express their sincere appreciation for emergency managers in every sector who work diligently to prepare, protect, and serve our cities, counties, states, tribes, territories, regions, and organizations against all hazards and risk. Given under my hand and the seal of the City of SeaTac on this 28th day of July, 2026.
This one is a little bit different. We'll take 2 minutes or 3 minutes to take pictures with Mr. Lugo and his team.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, we're back. The next item in the agenda will be 2026 Parks, Recreation, and Open Spaces Plan update. It will be 40 minutes, and it will be led by Pros Consulting Incorporated Principal Consultant Brian Trust. And yes, go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. As Mayor, you just said, it's the 2026 Parks Recreation Open Space Plan update. And what we're going to be listening to today is a recreation program plan update on that component of the plan. So there are multiple facets of this plan. This is just one piece. And please welcome Brian Trusty, who is the principal for Pros Consulting, Inc.
Thank you, Mary. Let me take just a moment and pull up the presentation. All right, did it work? Is it sharing properly? Excellent. Mayor, members of the council, thank you very much for having me this evening. It's my pleasure to be in front of you to share with you an update of where we are with the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Plan update for the city of SeaTac. We've been hard at work for the last. We have a lot of exciting things to share with you. Go into some of the things that we've learned so far. We want just as a quick reminder about what this plan is about and what we're trying to accomplish with it. So this is a plan that is absolutely found very robust, accessible, and inclusive community engagement. We have a number of community engagement things that are happening as we speak that we'll talk about. We've also had a number of other activities that have already occurred, including many interviews and focus groups, including all of you. This is not our plan. This is your plan. This is the plan for the residents, community members of SeaTac. So certainly want to make sure that we are well-founded in strong community engagement and the findings that come from that. We also want to make sure that this is a plan that represents some equity across the community, that people have the opportunity and the access to participate in a variety of dynamic recreation experiences, to experience wonderful world-class parks, no matter where they live or what their backgrounds may be. We want to make sure we build this in data and best practices, not only from across the region and the Puget Sound, but the state of Washington and nationally. That we really recognize too that the city's park system is also one of your largest footprints of green infrastructure. So thinking about our park system through that lens as well, and not just as a recreational asset, but also setting up the organization in the city for financial resiliency, organizational excellence, and having a dynamic and realistic action plan at the end that is the right thoughtful blend of things that are realistic, but that also are aspirational. There are a lot of things that go into this plan. I'm not going to read through all of this, but we've talked a little bit about all the public and stakeholder engagement, that really understanding where you are today in your current system, the conditions of your parks, of your facilities like this one, which are a part of that network. Really also how this plan speaks to the goals and connectivity around the community and the right levels of service, benchmarking against other communities of similar nature, and as well as those that may have more aspirational aspects to them, understanding where you are in your recreational programs, the demographics of the community, where that's going in the next 10 years, and how that fits into the community, the city's overall development priorities. It really is a three-step process of understanding where we are today, doing a lot of thorough assessments that we have some findings for tonight we'll share with you, getting to the more exciting part of the plan, which we call the ideation phase, or where we're going tomorrow, really developing those strategies that put CTAC in a proactive position moving forward over the next 5 to 10 years, and then the implementation phase, which is how we get there. Just to get a good sense of where we are in the process, this is a 9-month process that began really in earnest in March. And so we are on track to complete the plan and be back with you. Of course, we'll be in front of you before then too with additional findings, but for review and final adoption by the end of the calendar year. So you can see that dark red line running vertically. We're a little bit or almost halfway. We're not quite halfway, but we are on track with all the various tasks that you see running down the left side of the screen that are involved in the process. So there's a number of analyses in our scope of work that we are working through. Of course, community engagement occurs throughout that, but we started off first with a SWOT analysis with staff and other stakeholders, understanding where you are from a demographics and recreational trends perspective as a community, the conditions of your sites and facilities, how your parks are classified, the levels of service, doing a lot of GIS analysis, looking at proximity of the 10-minute walk shed to parks, recreation program analysis, prioritization, a capital improvement plan, implementation strategies, and funding and revenue strategies will complete our scope of work. As I mentioned, a robust and accessible community engagement process is at the heart of this plan. So as you can see, we are engaging in a number of different methodologies here. So we've started off the process with key stakeholder interviews and focus groups. Those will continue as we move through the process, and we have findings that will also inform additional questions that we may want to ask key stakeholder groups. We've had one public workshop already on the 25th of March. We have the second of 3 tomorrow night here in this building. We have initiated statistically valid surveys. I hear one of your very own has already received one in her household. So that's a process that's ongoing as we speak. I'll talk a little bit more as we go along in this presentation about that. We have a project website that also includes an online survey that's a mirror image of the statistically valid survey and provides also a interactive GIS mapping tool. Members of the community can get in and drop specific comments in specific locations around town. So what have we obviously, you're a community that's a very unique in its nature. You are experiencing slow but steady growth. You are landlocked, so you have a lot of growth issues, and growth oftentimes results in increased in density in the community. That also has implications around trails and parks. You have a large presence of families with children, and I'll show a slide here in a minute that looking at some of the age segmentation across. You're a community that's growing only slowly. You're diversifying much faster. So you are a community of already great diversity, and that is continuing to grow as is projected to grow over the next 10 to 15 years. And one of the more unique things about your park system in particular, but it also, I'm sure, impacts all the public infrastructure that you manage, is the massive impact from non-resident users and transient users. So just from the airport alone, you have over 100 unique visitors a day. But it's not just those transient visitors that are impacting your parks and trail system in particular. You have some very popular facilities, this one in which we're here this evening included, that are popular in the region. And so they attract a lot of non-residential uses from neighboring communities such as Burien and Tukwila and Des Moines. And so that is something to take into account as we think about the future of the park system and how the city of SeaTac can manage with that in mind. So here's a couple of demographic slides that probably is a recap of things you already know very well. But as you can see on the left side, as we look at age segmentations, and the two largest age segments are the gray area, which is 18 to 34, and the yellow area, which is 35 to 54. That tells us you have a lot of young adults, you have a lot of young families and middle-aged folks that are living here. Not to overshadow the importance of the needs of everyone else in this age segment scale, but that is generally what we're seeing as a trend in your community when it comes to age segmentation. And those are segments of the population that are going to continue to be fairly steady as we move through the next 10, 15, and 20 years. And then as you can see on the slide on the right, your city's population by race and how that is rapidly diversified even since the 2010 census and continues to project to be diversifying as you move forward. This is going to be critical as you think about your recreation program offerings. You are already on top of this as a city as you make so much of your information available in multiple languages, including the statistically valid survey that we sent out associated with this project. I mentioned we had a public meeting on March the 25th. It was right here in this room. It was very well attended. Some of you may have also been there that evening. So we shared a lot about what this plan was. We also opened it up to the floor for general Q&A from members of the public. And then we had several activity tables around the back of the room that as we broke out of a more formal presentation style, folks could gravitate towards various tables that reflect their interest and provide some additional comments and insights. So some of the things, the headlines that we learned early on and from that first meeting was the need to update and improve this center. This center, interestingly enough, was created almost right after the formation of the city of SeaTac itself. So it tracks at about 40 years old, about the same age as the city itself, which also is a reflection of how important recreation is to this community, as this was one of the first major infrastructure projects the city invested in. As we mentioned about the importance of the green infrastructure of your park system, thinking about the tree canopy, that's come up from a lot of stakeholders. And of course, a lot of that is contained within parks and greenways. The importance of adaptive and inclusive design of parks and park amenities like playgrounds and sport courts. The importance of safety and the perception of safety. Improved trails that offer continued protection against vehicular traffic. As this is a community that continues to increase in density, that will become more important. Improving community awareness about events and programs and offerings that are out there, additional adult programming, additional preschool and family programming, and the importance of arts and culture programming in parks and in, of course, the recreation portfolio itself. We had an interesting exercise in one of those activity tables where we gave folks 10 coins and we asked them to distribute it across these 6 different priorities as how they would like to see public funding invested within the city of SeaTac. And we gave them the options of developing new parks and trails, improving existing parks and trails, improving existing recreation facilities, developing new programs, developing new recreation facilities, and improving existing programs. As you can see how folks voted on that one particular exercise, that's just one data point for this whole process. And we are asking a very similar question to this on the statistically valid survey and the online survey. What was really a little bit unusual is we almost always see improving existing parks and trails as the #1 priority. And in this case, it came in #2. Developing new parks and trails was the one that folks voted for the most in that one activity. So far, the online survey that's on the project website, which can be accessed at this QR code. I also saw a poster out in the lobby here at the community center that also has a QR code to this website. So far, we've had a little over 550 visits to the site. This is as of late last week. A total of 68 responses to the survey. I would love to see our online survey responses grow to somewhere between 200 to 400, if not higher than that. So we have some work to do in promoting this survey and getting folks to use it. So far, 17 folks have made contributions to the interactive mapping and 3 responses to the vision board. So we will keep this project website up throughout the entirety of the entire project. So people will have plenty of opportunity to continue to access this. We hope to see a surge after tomorrow night's public meeting as well. The graph you can see at the bottom of the screen actually shows when the traffic occurred to the website, and we confirmed with staff, like what was causing these spikes. And what just happened to coincide around these spikes in traffic to the website were events that were occurring around the community in which staff were having a table and promoting interaction with the website. Also some advertising activity that the department was doing. So we know that is effective in pushing traffic to the website. So one of those first early parts of the process was an assessment of all your sites and facilities. I'm going to be continuing that tomorrow while I'm in town, visiting all your firehouses as well and assessing those facilities, since that is a maintenance responsibility of the Parks and Recreation team. But you can see you have a lot of parks that are in the excellent, good category, only a small handful in fair. None of the parks are what we consider to be in poor condition, and how they're classified on the far right and their varied levels of usage there in the middle column. So what's also very important is you have some signature regional facilities here, such as North SeaTac Park, the BMX Park, the Dog Park, this facility, some of the new trailheads that you've been putting in. So this is something that's very important, that you are putting in infrastructure that's not only important to your residents, but it's important to the region. So Mary mentioned one of the big areas of what we're reporting on this evening is the analysis we've conducted on your recreation programs. So these are programs that are designed and delivered by city staff and by contract support staff. And in that portfolio, you have over 93 distinct program and service offerings spread out across 6 core program areas, core program and activity areas. So the program and activity areas that we were evaluating were aquatics activities, community recreation programs, senior programs, special events, youth and teen programs, and facility rentals and permits. That is how your program portfolio is organized. So we analyzed it within its own organizational context. So here's some of the things that we learned. One of the first things we looked at was how your programs serve various age segments within the community. Does it mirror the demographics of the community itself? And what we saw is broad age segmentation across all core program areas. What you're looking at in this table, things that indicated with a P are those age segments that are served as a primary target audience for those various activity areas or program areas. Those that are indicated with an S are that they serve that age segment as a secondary audience. So you can see no age segment is left out, and many age segments are very well covered. The table at the bottom looks at how those various age segments are served as either the primary audience or the secondary audience. So there's a lot more detail in this analysis, as you can tell, that are captured in the actual report itself. The second thing we wanted to look at is where your programs were in their life cycle. Are they brand new programs that you just rolled out? Are they programs that have been out for a year or two, but they're experiencing rapid growth? Are they mature, or are they in a state of decline or saturation? And so what we see on the top is on the actual program distributions columns is how your programs score across those various life cycles. And on the far right is the recommended distribution that we provide based on our experience as former Parks and Recreation directors ourselves, as well as a national consulting firm seeing national best practices. So as far as we bundled those first 3 categories, you have 46% of your offerings fall in those first 3 categories, which are introductory, takeoff, or growth phases. We recommend somewhere between 50 to 60%, so you're just slightly below that recommended distribution. That's not a hard lift at all. You had about 36% of your offerings in the mature category, which is pretty much right at that recommended 40%. And then you had 18% of your offerings in those bottom 3 categories that are either in a state of saturation, decline, or regularly canceled programs. We recommend that no more than about 10% of your program portfolio fall in these life cycle stages. So what this tells us is not a bad report. This is actually a very helpful report, because as we think about what specific recommendations on improving your recreation programs, obviously some of the very first places we want to look are programs that may be in a state of saturation or decline or canceling regularly. You know, a recreation program portfolio is very much like a rose bush. And so in order to get it to really bloom nicely, sometimes you have to trim a little bit and cut back on some of those blooms that are not as healthy on the vine. So we know from the data that we collected with your staff exactly which programs fall in these categories. So this gives us it's almost like a targeting tool, if you will, as we think about how we can improve the program portfolio overall. This is a little bit of a setup slide to talk about program classification. So this is very common, particularly in public parks and recreation agencies, to organize your services in these 3 categories, starting at the bottom of essential services. Those are services that are most closely aligned with your public mandate as a public service. These are things that public parks and recreations generally must provide as kind of a core service. That next tier up is what we call important services. So these are all, of course, mission aligned. These are the should do's. But as you move up this spectrum towards value added, the benefits of participating in these programs are more exclusively enjoyed by the individual participant than they are providing broad community benefit. So a good example of essential services are things like learn to swim programs or senior lunches. These are things that really have a broad community benefit. Things that are usually category programs and important services are things like youth sports, because it's very important that we keep our youth active. We give them the opportunity to learn and practice fair play, and they stay healthy and well. But a lot of the benefit of participating in those programs are also individually enjoyed by the participants and their families. And examples of value-added services are things like senior trip and travel. So again, enrichment programs that are mission-aligned, but the benefit of participating in that program is almost exclusively enjoyed by the participant themselves. So why is that important? What you see, the graphic on the left, is generally how, when you think about that pyramid or those tiers of program classification, how the cost recovery and the pricing of those programs is typically aligned according to national best practices. So for example, on the broad community benefit essential services at the bottom of that pyramid, generally these are programs that are most commonly free or highly subsidized. So cost recovery is very low, 0 to 20%. And as you move up the spectrum and up the pyramid towards value-added services, generally, more commonly, you see more aggressive cost recovery strategies engaged through pricing, et cetera. So how do your programs fare out? That table across the top right shows the percentages of your offerings that fall in those various categories. So 28% of your offerings would be considered essential, 34 would be considered important, and 38 considered value added. That is a very balanced approach. So I did not see any red flags here at all. Sometimes when I see things that may cause me concern, it was where I see the proportion of essential services being very low and the proportion of value-added services being very high, particularly in a community that may have broad economic disparities within it. So you have a very balanced approach, which is great. And the pie chart just looks at that a little bit more graphically. You can see it's almost equally distributed across all three classifications. So how does that relate to the various pricing strategies that you use? So right now, you use 10 out of the 11 recommended strategies that we bring to the table. So it's a very well-balanced approach there as well. Some of your strongest areas of use, the things that you use to inform how you price a program, are cost recovery goals that you may have for that program. You keep in mind the customer's ability to pay, and making sure that you have a regular availability of free offerings in the portfolio for folks that may be economically disadvantaged. So as we think about ways in which we can improve the sophistication of your pricing strategies moving forward, is an effort to do a number of things. One is to be able to properly resource the department, but also deal with this issue we talked about before, which is the massive impact of non-resident usage on not only your facilities, but your programs. So a lot of this data puts us in a great position to begin to have that discussion from a data-driven perspective. So what are some of our upcoming priorities? As I mentioned, we have our second public meeting tomorrow night here in this building. The statistically valid survey is out, and we're anticipating the results by the end of August. We have initiated the part of the scope that includes developing park and trail design standards for the entire system. So that we have a great team from Colorado called Logan Simpson that has started the discussion with staff about what that needs to look like. We'll be getting down into doing an operations and maintenance analysis in the next 6 to 8 weeks. We're developing a toolkit which will really help to digitize and formalize a lot of your training and professional development for ensuring that you are not only a great public service, but a modernized employer of choice. And then we'll get into specific strategies and recommendations. And finally, a third public meeting, to a date to be determined. There will be multiple touch points for us to be back and have these kind of conversations with you all as well during this process, and especially as we have more to learn and to share, and that puts us in a position to start thinking about strategies. So again, I'm going to close with a reminder. This is a screenshot of our project website. This is where folks can access the online survey and the interactive mapping tool and the vision board. We are trying to promote this every chance we get. We appreciate your help in doing so as well with your constituents, because it's more responses we have, the better this project is. So thank you very much for your attention tonight, and I believe we have some time for questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Trust. Councilmember Connie, any questions?
Thank you so much for the presentation. I just have one question. This is all really exciting. Could we go back to the program life cycles?
You bet.
And I apologize to my colleagues. Would you just rebrief me on the purpose of this slide? I was just having trouble following along. But from my understanding is that this is talking about not how many, like, it's not like the, like if you have like a pottery class, not like a beginner's level, but like the actual lifespan of the class. Is that correct?
It's the life cycle of the program itself. So
Okay.
let's say it's a pottery class that the department just started last season. So that would be probably the one that they would categorize in the introduction phase. If it's a pottery class that's been around for 10 years and they've just continually provided it, but it has steady participation, it would fall in that mature phase. If it's a program that's maybe it's been around for 3, 4, 5 years, but they continue to see declining participation, then that would be in the saturation or declining phase. So this is almost like a performance metric of where the programs are, how they're performing in their own life cycle.
Okay, so it looks like largely our programs, as they're introduced, are sustaining themselves.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
Thank you.
And there's opportunity to refine the portfolio by looking at some of the ones that are in the saturation and decline phase.
excellent. Thank you for the clarification.
You bet.
That is all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Juan.
Thank you. So I have a few observations and suggestions, I guess. So I've been actively either observing and or participating in various different programs just to see, how our constituents are enjoying themselves and what sort of impact and how the organization works and all of that stuff. Okay, so regarding the program classification, when we are considering value-added services versus essential services, I agree with all of that. But then when we go to individual and community benefits, I agree with that as well. I think the community benefits should be focused on CTEC local community benefits. And here is why. So I'll use the BMX track as an example. And that is, like a value-added service. Wonderful programming. It actually has, they organize events that are attended worldwide by international folks attend these events, and they travel, come to our city specifically for these events as part of the World BMX Championships or whatever it's called. Hundreds of families attend, children and even grandparents participate as well. Super community benefit there, as well as individual benefit. However, it's probably a value add. However, that entire program, the program, the track maintenance itself, the organization, it's all self-funded. Mm-hmm. So the city really has very minimal, involvement with that, other than, assisting with some planning perhaps. But it's a super successful program, run by a nonprofit organization. I'm happy about the partnership. Another example is the senior program, and specifically the senior lunches. I attend once in a while, just to catch up with people, right? And it's packed.
It's fun. Like
it is.
There's music. There's
music.
Very engaging.
Very well attended. Sometimes there are no seats. So you have to pull in chairs and all of that stuff. Meals are great. I think it's a wonderful program. I think it should be expanded. Mm-hmm. However, what I've noticed is that it's similar to the BMX attendance in that very few CTEC people are actually participating in that program. And in fact, I would say more than 90% of the participants are not SeaTac residents. They're coming from other cities, and that's okay. I think that's fine. We are providing a community benefit. But when I talk to SeaTac residents who are seniors who could be interested in a program, I've informed folks about this. And so 2 local seniors never even heard about this, and they attended for the first time, and they will continue to come back. So I think there's some outreach efforts that need to be done there with our local community to inform them of these programs that we have available for them. But on the other hand, I think that because I don't know exactly what the cost, how the costs work out, but I think that we should just be able to make sure that even though it does benefit the individual and community, has both benefits, if the community is mostly non-CTAP community, then we should seek towards a potential cost recovery model in that particular situation. So I'm not saying that what I would like to see is the program expand and perhaps provide a steep discount for CTAC residents who are participating, and then pursue more of a cost recovery model for non-CTAC residents. That is a suggestion that I have. I think that would make that more sustainable and allow us to expand the program as well. That's just an example.
Absolutely, and we totally 100% agree with that. What you see here on the screen is right now, a state of residency is really used as a pricing strategy in only 2 of the core program areas, community recreation and facility rentals. All the other program, it is the same rate for a resident as a non-resident to participate in it. And as a result, you have extremely popular programs that non-residents are really enjoying, but potentially at the expense of CTAC residents being a part of it as well. And so a strategy for managing that and taking advantage of all these non-residents that are enjoying your programs that are subsidized for your residents is to employ a little bit more sophisticated resident versus non-resident fee structure. And so as we get further along in the process, I know fees and pricing can be a controversial topic, but this is one that we're going to recommend we dive into a little bit more to manage some of these types of things.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
You bet.
Mr. Pinson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for this presentation. Can we go back to actually just had it up. Sorry, my computer is lagging. The program life cycles slide.
Yes.
I appreciate you breaking this down at the request of my colleague, but what else is this slide telling us about our programs that are currently being offered by the city of SeaTac?
Well, that's a great question. So as we think about, and like as I mentioned, when we perform this analysis of all those 93 individual programs and offerings, we know which one of them, where they fall in each one of these life cycles. So there's no guesswork in trying to understand which programs are in that state of saturation or decline or maturity. We know which ones they are. And we have another client in the Midwest where they actually had a much higher percentage in that saturation and decline phase. And it became pretty clear as you look at things like in the table on the bottom there, where a lot of those programs may be occurring, that again, just makes it much more efficient for us and for the department staff to really hone in on where there are improvements that could be made in the offerings. In some cases, it may mean that there's a program or 2 that we need to discontinue because there's just not the sufficient interest in it that justifies the effort that it takes to design it, deliver it, schedule it, et cetera. In some cases, it may mean there's an existing program that needs to be evolved or refreshed in order to create more appeal, so it is more popular amongst residents. And then in some cases, it shows us where programs are extremely high performing, and we need to maybe double down or offer more occurrences of that particular program if there's long waiting lists, et cetera. So as you see on that table on the bottom, if you kind of look at in the saturated and decline and no-go phase life cycles, you can see which categories of programs have the highest proportions of offerings that are in each one of those life cycles. So for example, 14% of special events currently are considered in the saturation phase. That means we're probably, we're maxed out on the capacity. Sometimes that's a facilities issue, sometimes that's a staff issue, but those are programs that are kind of getting maxed out. As you look up at community recreation towards the top, 21% of its offerings are in a state of decline. So that means we probably want to pay attention to what's going on there. What are those programs? How can we improve upon them to maybe bring them back so that they are not in a state of decline, but they are moving somewhere over to a growth or a takeoff phase? Does that make sense?
That does make sense. And just to follow up to that, do we have the ability to track where it's a constraint due to staffing versus actually physical space?
Yes. So
And will we track that?
That is a anecdotal evidence behind each one of these as we dive into these individually with staff, really understanding circumstantially what may contribute to how they're being scored in this particular analysis. And so going through them one by one with that team, we'll be able to identify those that are hindered by staffing or facility capacity issues.
Thank you. In an earlier slide, I saw that the top resident priority was develop new parks and trails. But we also stated that the city of SeaTac is landlocked.
Yep.
So where will these new parks and trails come from? Will the recommendation be through acquisition, partnerships with community-based organizations? Can you tell me more about that?
And again, this was just one point in time with
Yes.
a small group of people. I would be very interested to see the results of this question as it comes back from the statistically valid survey, because we also asked it there. And that's going to be a much more broad sweeping cross-representative sample of SeaTac residents overall. But as a built-out community, as you think about new parks, new trails is one thing. I mean, that's a little bit easier. But new parks is oftentimes pretty challenging because of just a lack of available tracts of land that would be suitable for parkland. But as you think about, it shouldn't be off the table, but it should definitely demand our creativity of things like engaging the development community so that, like park dedications when they may be doing new developments or refreshing new developments, using that tool to help bring parks online. As you mentioned, partnerships with community-based organizations, land swap opportunities, old dilapidated lots that might have a higher and better purpose as a vibrant public space. So there's a number of different strategies. Do I foresee that you are going to have large community and regional parks, new ones in your future? Probably not.
Okay.
But refreshing the ones that you do have should be a priority.
Thank you. And my last question, how is this PROS plan coordinating with our transportation improvement plan? I'd hate for us to get into a situation where the PROS plan has a recommendation that's in conflict with our transportation improvement plan along the same corridor. So what does that
No, you bet.
coordination look like?
And there's a lot of other plans not only going on, but having been recently completed and then also planned to begin in the near couple of years. And so staff are keeping us well apprised of a lot of those ongoing planning efforts. We also have members of the planning department. Kayleen she participates in each one of our bi-weekly meetings. So we always are asking, how does this intersect? How do what we're talking about intersect with other plans that are going on in the community? It's particularly around transportation, trails and connectivity is such an important integration point. So if there's opportunities for projects to do double duty, solve transportation issues and connectivity issues at the same time, we're trying to make sure we stay apprised of that ahead of time.
Thank you. And you said the next public meeting is tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night,
And where's it at?
this room.
This room.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you, Mr. Pinchel. I use City of SeaTac Park as an open spaces every day, basically. And I'm also a talker. So I talk to the people walking around it, playing with their children, and all of those things. And the parks of SeaTac is our jewel and joy to our community, really. Talking to them, I find out a few things. Grandview. Most of the people who use the Grandview Park, they live in Des Moines and Kent. Most of them. Fairview. I talked to people who were walking with their dogs in actually North SeaTac Parks or other places. And I told them, look, there's Unleashed and park in SeaTac. Do you know that it's like 10 blocks from here? But they don't know that. So this is I don't want to, I mean, how you quantify joy? You know, when you give in so much joy to seniors and dog lovers and community members to enjoy there. So I want our communities around us to use our parks and enjoy it and stay healthy and, you know, all of those things instead of, you know, you are Seattle, $5 from there, you know. I there is something that's dear to me that's we call common good community, not city of SeaTac, but as a whole, as a state, as a county, as a cities around in this area. So I have one question, and you mentioned it some time ago, which is that we are growing community, we are very diverse community. We get the information different ways. My 18 years old get her information her way. I get mine. But we want to engage all of those things. And there's a language, cultural barrier. I know that the senior luncheon program here, which I have attended, which is very beautiful, it doesn't represent all our demographics. I know many seniors of color who live in this area, who never came to here. So it's actually, we should reach out and say, hey, you know, one is a month, right? We can eat here, we can have fun, you know, we will have interpreters, all of those things, and actually bridge the cultures and all of those things. So there's a lot of potential in the city that we have not explored it. I'm glad that we are starting this conversation and this is an opportunity. But I want to know specifically how you will approach, you know, immigrant seniors who live in city of SeaTac in one of the apartments or just from here, that how you do that.
That's a great question. So, and again, the statistically valid survey is our primary tool for that. It is going to, because it is completely random sampled, with wholly within just the boundaries of SeaTac. So, we are not picking up any feedback from non-residents in that tool, and we track the results when they come back. So make sure that based on the age segmentation, the race and ethnic composition of SeaTac, that we're getting responses from survey respondents that mirror the community profile of the city. So that if we are running the risk of oversampling or undersampling any groups, we can correct that before we complete the survey. So we do monitor that pretty regularly. And ETC Institute, our partner who administers that survey, is very strong. We are also continuing to take guidance from Mary and her team about ways, and I think they're getting feedback from some of you all as well, about ways in which we can continue to engage other community members through community-based organizations, looking at other strategies that we can employ to ensure that not just users, but non-users' voice is included in this plan. In that survey, we do ask people about what are their barriers to access. So we take an opportunity to learn what is it that keeps them from using your parks more often than they currently do. We also ask them about, one, how they currently find out about park and recreation opportunities, and then secondly, how they would prefer to find out about parks and recreation opportunities, so that we can help shape the marketing, communications, awareness pieces of the department getting information out there. This is a challenge most parks and recreation departments face. Parks and recreation is the closest thing your city has to like a pure retail service, where you put together a portfolio of offerings and then you go out and advertise it and recruit and try to get people to participate. And then sometimes there's fees associated with it, sometimes not. And that's not exactly a core competencies a lot of cities excel at. It's very different than marketing communications around public works or police and fire. And so I anticipate that one of the outcomes of this plan is that the city's marketing communication efforts, particularly in parks and recreation, is going to improve dramatically because of all the information that we're gathering in this process, including the surveys, the interviews, and the public meetings.
Beautiful. Thank you very much.
You bet.
All right. I will wrap up that one. The next item will be key city issues and requests for direction, total for 45 minutes from the city manager, Jonathan Young.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. I'll introduce this first item while Interim Deputy City Manager Maxim comes up to present. One of the things that in local government we get really good at doing is we complete a project and then we move immediately on to the next one without ever pausing to reflect how things went. Over the past summer, we had the culmination of one of the largest efforts we've had in preparing for the welcoming of the World Cup to Seattle. This was a process that from its very beginning was designed to keep SeaTac safe. We wanted to provide spaces where community could gather. If the better part of 1 million people got off a light rail and needed a place to congregate, we wanted to make sure we had safe spaces for them to get together. We did that, and we knew that along the way we would learn some lessons about how community and visitors can use space along the International Boulevard. So with that, I'll turn it over to Evan.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Bear with me while I adjust the microphone here. So as Jonathan introduced a moment ago, I do have an update for you on our recent World Cup events. This is a little bit of an update on some of the activities that you've heard briefings on over the last few months. I thought we should probably start with a little bit of a presentation around each of the activation sites. These are photos that, of course, were taken by our photographer, Mr. Inman. So do credit for the quality of the pictures as we move forward. And I'll remind the City Council, we really focused on creating 3 FIFA activation sites. The screen that you have on the, the images that you see on the screen before you are related to the Kiss and Ride site. This is at your groundbreaking event. We had both the mini pitch, the BMX pump track, and then, of course, a number of vendors located at that site. Next site as you move north on International Boulevard, of course, was our Stoop site. Again, I think you'll recognize the photos here. This comes from the groundbreaking event or the ribbon cutting event that we engaged in at the Stoop site. I think a few of our council members and perhaps our city manager in the slides. And just really want to highlight the color, the activation event, and how well we've put these sites together. And we'll elaborate more in a moment here. And then moving south, of course, the third site was the former Bullpen property. Remind the City Council that we closed on that property at the end of February, demolished the bulk of the buildings on that property, and then stood up this FIFA activation site in time for the groundbreaking that you can see on the screen in front of you. Recall that these activation sites served a couple of different purposes. Of course, we were celebrating World Cup and creating spaces for our communities, our travelers, to come and view the games. It also serves as a trial run for creating activation sites along International Boulevard. So our thoughts around placemaking, gauging how many of our travelers and our residents would come to these sites if they were stood up. And then third, it did serve a little bit of a security purpose in terms of creating a space where we would have potential crowds come and be in a very defined location during the game so we could manage if there was an emergency event. And fortunately, there was not. Looking at the activation sites, these photos on the screen in front of you really represent across all 3 of the sites. As you can see, they were heavily used and heavily programmed out during the World Cup games. I have a brief summary here. I just would like to characterize a little bit the effort that went into setting up these sites. What you'll see, of course, is the 3 sites that are activated. This did require strong coordination across at least 3 of your operational departments, or Community and Economic Development Department, your Public Works Maintenance Department in particular, and your Parks Department. Those 3 departments worked collaboratively to identify all of the materials necessary for setting up the site, putting those facilities in place, and then maintaining them throughout the duration of the World Cup and continuing here. We've seen rendering, you've seen the pictures. The right-hand graphic on the screen in front of you really represents the site planning that we had to do for each of these sites. This represents really 1 page out of several for each site, and that's in the process of evolving as we move post-World Cup. Getting the sites ready, and again, this is just a high-level summary of the tasks associated with each site, and I really want to highlight our maintenance crews, both from Public Works and Parks. You'll recall that you brought on additional seasonal staff, and our regular staff were involved in each of the sites engaging in these tasks, focusing on creating landscape spaces, kind of welcoming spaces, putting in planters, ordering 50 pots, putting in all of the maintenance work, cleaning the site each day, and so on. Also set up a lot of furniture and equipment. If you visited those sites, you've seen all of the tables, the chairs, the shade, the awnings, the TV, the sound system, etc. We are looking at the pump track for our BMX partners, and then of course our mini pitch setup, and looking at how we can repurpose that moving forward. And then last, of course, we did focus on safety. So I think you've seen the Jersey barriers out there, that those are water filled, intended to ensure that we have safe traffic protection at each of the sites. During the World Cup games, of course, there was also daily maintenance that was required from our maintenance and public works crews. So again, we had people out on the sites every day doing cleanup, washing down the property, making sure the bathrooms were reset. We had security teams on site to ensure that none of the city assets were damaged overnight, things of that nature. Just to give you a little bit of a sense of the scale of the activities on a daily basis, we have 52 planters, 52 planters across the 3 sites. Each of those planters required daily watering, so we ended up spending approximately 63 hours in this time period just watering plants. And that's just one aspect of the site maintenance during this month and a half, 2 months time period. Some preliminary data, and Councilmember Vincent, I did hear your comments at the Highland Forum the other night. This is preliminary data coming from our Placer AI data tracking for site usage. We'll note there is a typo on this slide. My apologies in advance. You'll see the 4th bullet in the upper left-hand corner says 68% and 44%. That should read 28% and 13%. And I will provide that to City Council after the meeting this evening. But the highlight here is really the number of visitors we had during this time period. So this is the time period from May 22nd through July 20th. Recall that the last World Cup game, the final, was on July 19th. In that time period at the bullpen site, we had more than 4,000 visitors at the bullpen site with an average time of stay of an hour and a half. If you look at the right-hand chart, that represents the days of the week where we saw the most activity, Monday being the left-hand bar, Sunday being the right-hand bar. So on that upper right-hand chart, Friday and Sunday were the days when we saw the most visitors, typically about 1,000 visitors across the span of time. Lower left-hand is the visit duration, and I realize these are small graphics. This is not intended as the full data briefing, but just the preliminary. And you'll see in the right-hand side, most days were exceeding 150 minutes at each of the site, at the bullpen site, pardon me. And then the lower right-hand corner represents the time of day where we saw the most activity. And as you might expect, about 12 o'clock, about noon, we saw activity peaking on or beginning to pick up on the site, peaking typically around the 6 o'clock hour. Moving north to the Stoop site, had slightly less in the way of visitors, which actually is a little bit counterintuitive to my experience of the Stoop property. But we had about 3,400 visitors to the Stoop site. Many of those visitors went more than once, which is why you see 4,000 visits, 4,100 visits, and that represents repeat visitors to that site. Most active, typically Friday through Sunday. Duration actually a little bit higher for visiting that site. Again, consistent perhaps with my experience, at least of about 100 minutes on average. And you can see the distribution on the lower left-hand corner. And then kind of an interesting visit pattern. So you had a peak pattern both at the noon hour and into the early evening, starting at 6 o'clock. And then for the last site, this is the Welcoming Plaza site. Remind the City Council, this is actually right next to our Sound Transit station. The numbers threw me a little bit in terms of visitation. You'll see that we had approximately 16,000 visitors pass through that site. This is, I'll remind the City Council, this data I'm presenting to you is the Placer AI data. So what it's actually tracking is cell phones, and it's tracking American cell phones. So it is not picking up international travelers. So in part, I'm caveating this information because it is not a complete data set. We also are collecting information from our site operators to help verify some of the information that we'll eventually report to you this September. But those 16,000 visitors, I think actually will probably represent a fair number of our both airport employees walking past the site going into the airport and perhaps catching the train to go north. You'll notice that the average visit time is much smaller on this site, 24 minutes. And if you look at the distribution both across days of the week, there's not a huge noticeable difference from day to day in terms of visitation. And if you look in the lower left-hand corner, you'll notice that most of the visit durations are down in that 15 to 20-minute range or less. And then notably in the right hand, in terms of when the visits are occurring during the day, you'll see a much more even distribution moving forward. I neglected to mention this on the Stoop site, so I'll move back just for a moment. Stoop site, one of the bits of information that we're able to gather from Placer AI data is the visits to CTEC businesses before and after. And you'll note, in particular with the Stoop site, we saw a number of visitors coming to Stoop from a CTEC business or returning to a CTEC business after visiting Stoop. This would indicate that we are seeing a high number of travelers and tourists visiting this site in particular. So in terms of funding, switching gears just a little bit, I reported to you last on this particular item before we engaged in FIFA. And I'll note, City Council, in your wisdom, you did authorize a large lodging tax expenditure to support this and a large general fund expenditure. The positive in this slide is really that we are significantly underspent on our general fund expenditures. So the parenthetical numbers that you'll see on the screen is the original budgeted amount, and the number immediately to the left of the parentheses would represent our expenditure to date. So I'll call to your attention that general fund at the very bottom, we're approximately $800,000, $900,000 under our general fund expenditure that you originally budgeted last October, November timeframe. We're not quite done yet. So we are in the process of evolving the 3 sites for some period of time to take us through the summer and into the early fall. I anticipate one of the referral requests you'll receive from City Manager Young this evening is for a contract to extend the security services beyond August 31st. We would be drawing from the general fund savings to cover that contracting cost. If approved or if referred by City Council tonight, you would see that contract amendment on August 11th. You'll also note that we did have both the Highline Heritage Museum contract for 4th of July installations at all 3 sites, and we had the ice cream truck that went to the 3 sites. Alluded to this in some of my comments up until now. We are in the process of essentially modifying all 3 sites now that we're post the World Cup games and we're closing the FIFA activation, if you will, and really focusing on that site activation to try and see what our visitation looks like post FIFA. So when we don't have a big event in town, but trying to get a sense of what kind of visitors might we see at all 3 sites. These represent essentially the evolutions occurring at all 3 sites as we move forward. In terms of the actual on the ground change, typically you're seeing the stages removed. You'll see the archways removed. You'll see some of the decoration and the branding shift as we move into this post World Cup timeframe. You are seeing the bulk of the furniture, the big video screens are remaining, and we are seeing the vendors or the operators of each site begin to shift how they're approaching opportunities during the day. I'll call to the council's attention, you saw the visitation did modify throughout the day. We had our operators running from like a 10 to 10 o'clock timeframe. If most of the visitors are occurring later in the day, we may want to shift operations at each site. And with that, Mayor, City Council, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have or wrap up and turn back to City Manager Young.
Thank you. Other question, comments? Mr. Kwan.
Thank you. Great info. I love seeing data, and I'm glad that we finally got 2 craft breweries in our city, albeit it's temporary. So the feedback I've been getting from the community has overall been very positive, and some folks, about time we got something, and very happy there's a family-friendly place where they can go and bring the kids and dogs and stuff like that. So overall, super happy about that. I have a couple of questions about the visitor number count. So from what I have heard, we have been getting these numbers through the RTA? No, we're doing it ourselves.
So I'll remind the council that Placer AI data is a subscription that the city of SeaTac pays for directly.
And we're paying them directly. We're not going through the
Yes.
RTA like we were in the past for some of this stuff.
Really with AI data, we've been contracting directly, to my knowledge, really since we started collecting.
Okay.
We use lodging tax funding to pay for it because it is.
So we
part
have,
of-
so we have direct access to all of this information because I know there's more than just what is presented here, right?
Yes. Oh,
Okay.
yes.
I
And-
would be
and-
interested in that. We can take that offline. Also, I heard that that service only counts, or rather does not count or is unable to count international cell phone, which was a vast majority of the travelers that were coming through our city. So there's a chunk missing from this number. Is that right?
That is correct, Councilmember. And truly, this is intended as a preliminary flavor. At the end of the activation cycle, so I'm anticipating this fall, we will have both the Placer AI information, which, as you said, picks up non-international phone numbers. And we have asked the operators of each site to keep track of visitation. So we have both an on-the-ground count and a separate data source, if you will. And this is intended as the preliminary snapshot.
Okay. So I'm curious about the number of visits and the estimated number of visitors because I personally seen at the Mediae site there were 6 people who parked their car. They went to the Angle Lake parking garage, light rail parking garage, parked their car, came out, and I saw them and. Wearing a suit. So they were talking to me and they were like, hey, what's going on across the street? I said, oh, yeah, we've got this activation site. Why don't you go check it out and all that? So they said, do they have a bathroom? I said, they probably do. Go check it out. And so they went there. 6 people, hung on a little bit, used the bathroom, came back, got on light rail and left. They did not buy anything, okay? and they did hang out for, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes or something like that, or taking turns. So does that count as a visit?
Yes.
It does.
It
So
would.
my concern here is that we know, because we have an airport and hotels, that visitors is great. High visitor numbers. We get 100,000 visitors every single day. That's awesome. Okay, but what really counts for us is visitors don't necessarily translate to sales, right? And sales is what keeps things like this sustainable, right? And that is something I've been hearing from our business. Open up this type of business because it might not be sustainable. So I'm curious, can we get the sales numbers at some point, see what that looks like? Because I'd like to be able to show, look, it's sustainable because the sales have been increasing or whatever those numbers happen to be. And so I'm more interested in that.
No, I appreciate that, Councilmember Kwan. Pardon me for saying it again. These are preliminary numbers. I will note the graph in the lower left-hand corner would pick up the average duration of visits, and the bars to the left-hand side of that graph represent short visit times. And really, what I called out in my initial presentation is the bulk of those visits exceeded 150 hours, but we did get some, as you said a moment ago, that were in that 5 to 10 minute range. The sales tax information typically runs about 2 months after the sales tax is collected.
Right.
So for the period, we're focused on right now, May to July, we really need to have a conversation in that September, October timeframe to have any kind of meaningful feedback in terms of sales tax revenue. The purpose of including the visits before and after to SeaTac businesses was just to give you a sense of the pattern of visitors or travelers coming to the site and what percentage were potentially going to another business location. It doesn't speak to actual revenue, though, to your point, Councilmember.
So when that time comes, I'd like to see if we could separate the activation site sales tax revenue versus the other stuff, because I know our hotels were at occupancy, full occupancy and all of that stuff. And so all of the sales tax is going to be up during FIFA for sure, right? But we need to be able to determine how successful were the activation sites specifically, right? And so that I would be interested in that. Also have a question regarding the funding. So I see that we've invested quite a bit of general fund into this. I thought we also had state funding for this, or towards public safety or something like that, remember? And so how is that represented here? How is that represented here?
Unfortunately, it's represented by its absence to some extent. So you'll see in the third row on the graph behind me, we had police and security staffing, and we originally budgeted $360,000 for that. And we've spent $29,000. And really credit to former Captain Smith, Chief Smith with the city of SeaTac. He really worked with this, King County Sheriff's Office to cover the cost of the additional police services during the period of time that we're talking about. So that's where that underspend comes from. I'm not aware of state or federal funds off the top of my recollection. I can consult with Director Pilo and make sure I haven't missed something here in my reporting too.
Okay, so my concern here is that, and I pointed this out before FIFA, that when mega events visit areas, the cities that are not well prepared end up actually losing money from the event. And so I want to make sure that we did not lose money. And if we did, how much did we lose from this event? We need to compare the total sales tax increase revenue versus a normal non-FIFA year versus how much we spent on all of this other stuff. And hopefully we come out positive at the end of the day.
I appreciate that, Councilman.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Maconia.
Thank you, Mayor. First, thank you for breaking out how much small, detailed work, like day to day, all the staff did. The amount of time just watering plants, I think, is just, it's a testament to how behind the scenes, like the reason why it looks so good all the time is because people are out there doing the work every day. So thank you. I really appreciated that. While we're on this slide, I had a question about the naloxone spending. Was it budgeted at like almost 42,000 based off of some kind of estimate? And have we talked with the hotel staff? I believe staff were working to educate the hotel staff there, just kind of like what that looked like, if there was other kinds of responses that allowed us to.
We did budget the 42,000 or you are reading that graph correctly. We did acquire naloxone and we did distribute it to our hotel partners, and we did provide training to the hoteliers in terms of how to apply naloxone in the case of an emergency. I don't have specifics on that this evening, Councilmember, but I'm happy to follow up after.
That would be great. I know that this obviously is very focused on the 3 activation sites. I would just be curious on if that is a reasonable number, if that makes sense, or maybe our hotel staff were really on it. Public safety is just really high up there. I'd just love some more context for that.
Thank you.
That's all. Thank you.
Councilman Fizan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Evan, thank you again for this presentation. I understand the information here is preliminary, but first and foremost, I do want to thank the staff for putting this all together. I understand procuring some of these items during, FIFA season when we have competing jurisdictions also looking for similar items. We still got it done, and we did so safely. So I just wanted to first thank the staff publicly and personally for putting this event on. I do agree with the previous speakers. I would like to know at some point the economic impact that this has brought to the city of SeaTac, return on investment, and just lessons learned. But just looking at the information here, personally visiting all 3 sites, I think we did a phenomenal job. Just saying that again. I can't say that enough, actually. I don't have any additional comments other than just a multitude of gratitude for the hard work that this all took, and looking forward to the final numbers. So thank you guys again.
Thank you, Councilman.
Multitude of gratitude. I I want to second that actually, and it was really amazing how things came together. I mean, short time, very difficult time, and we did good, and the staff did excellent work, and I'm very grateful that we did. The numbers actually, I can assure you, we make a ton of tax revenue for the world people. The hotels were full. The city was. I have been all two of the activation side, and sometimes we couldn't even find seat, especially in the evening. So thank you very much, sir. City manager, Mr. Kwan. We are late.
Yeah, I'll be brief. So as part of the skateboard committee and various other committees, I learned that the USA is in the bid to host the upcoming Women's FIFA World Cup in 2031. That's in 5 years. They might return here. And that's going to be another huge influx. If it does, we don't know yet. It's 5 years away. So I would like to make sure that we have this dialed in, because this was, basically the learning moment, right? So that we are very well prepared if in case it comes here, returned in 5 years. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Councilmember Kwan, and maybe just one follow-up comment, and I'll move away, Mayor. We do have a scheduled debrief event at the staff on the staff side of things in August for, I think, exactly what Councilmember Vincent and Kwan mentioned a moment ago, which is lessons learned. How can we do this perhaps more smoothly the next time? It was a bit of a stressor in the moment. So thank you, council members. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, sir.
Picking up where Evan left off, as he alluded to, we would like to come back to you at your next regularly scheduled council meeting on August 11th so that you can at least talk through the benefits and weigh the possibility of extending a security contract that would allow some of our activation zones to stay active through the fall so that we can keep that amenity open for public through the fall. I would ask for a referral of a contract amendment for FIFA security for our FIFA activation zones to the August 11th meeting, as well as a resolution memorializing the council's direction from your council study session on July 14th on the proposed options and sequencing of the schedule for the International Village. I would ask for both of those items to be referred to your next regularly scheduled council meeting on August 11th. See a majority of thumbs up. Very good. All right, thank you for that. Would also ask for referral to the August 11th council study session, an update on your council request forms, CRFs, and also a preview of the sequencing of events for your upcoming biennial budget. So I'd like to spend some time talking through that. If I could just have a thumbs up for referral. Very good. Couple more administrative matters on your agenda tonight is a grant application for the King County Minor Home Repair. That's on your consent agenda. A little bit unusual because the dollar amount of $150,000 is normally the threshold where we would not bring this to you on consent. This was a requirement actually from King County, and so it's satisfying their obligations for council approval of the grant application. And so even though it's only at the application phase, it appears on your consent so that we can satisfy the elements of King County in applying for it. So just wanted to point out that nuance to why that appears on your agenda tonight. Also, earlier this month, I sent you a copy of the Planning Commission's mid-year report as transmitted and prepared by our Community and Economic Development staff. We have staff with us if you have any questions about the Planning Commission's upcoming work plan. Otherwise, just wanted to make sure that you were informed of that work plan. And I'll pause and see if there are any questions or comments. Otherwise, staff are always available to you. If you have questions offline, we can certainly connect you.
All right. Thumbs up. Understood. Good. Okay.
Very good. Just a few upcoming events to make sure everyone is aware of. It's a really busy week. As we already heard, the PROS consulting team will be back here tomorrow night giving their update on the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space plan. We also have tomorrow night a summer market and music in the park from 5 to 8 p.m. On also tomorrow, just in case you get any questions from community members, we were alerted by Port of Seattle that the FAA is conducting a training exercise in which it's possible that they may be practicing rescuing people, and there could be rappelling from a bridge. Just if people drive by and say, why are there people suspended from a bridge? It's a training exercise. There's nothing serious going on at the port. They are putting out that messaging, and we are amplifying it as well, just to make sure in times of heightened security concerns that there's no concern from community. Thursday, July 30th, there's a Chamber of Commerce event where I will be sharing an update on our business and occupation tax plans, as well as our financial strategy, making sure that small business owners are aware of the efforts that we're contemplating as part of the biennial preparation effort. Again, that's Thursday night, being hosted at the Chamber of Commerce. On July 31st, there's Theater in the Park. And Friday Flick Series is on August 11th. And so that concludes our updates. I do just want to give a quick nod of gratitude to city staff in setting up a different venue for us tonight, flexing a different muscle to get out and have these meetings out in a different part of the city. While tonight's event is not teeming with community members, it is a reflection of our ability to do this that is really an important part of building an exercise to get out in public and be other spaces. And so we anticipated that this may not be the most action-packed agenda. That was actually by design, because we were thinking that if we had any technology glitches tonight, we didn't want to have some of our meatiest topics not covered and have the possibility of the miss. So far, things are going well, and we appreciate council and staff's cooperation with this pilot of a new space. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager Young. Any question, comments, or shall we move on? Beautiful. Okay, let's move on. The next item will be committee updates. We have only one, transportation and public works one.
Thank you. I'll try to keep this brief. So the Transportation and Public Works Committee met last week on July 23rd, and we discussed the construction contract. So this is for the airport station area improvements. The contract went out to bid, and the committee discussed the project funding, the schedule, contingency, contractor oversight, maintaining access to nearby residences and businesses during construction. We want to make sure that the people in our city are not severely impacted during the construction process. We confirmed that sufficient funding is available for the current biennium and that access will be maintained throughout the construction. The committee recommended to forward this as Agenda Bill 6845 to the August 11th council meeting coming up as an action item. So we will all have an opportunity to review this contract. We also talked about, we had an informational update regarding the electrification of our fleet. So a few years ago, the city decided to move to electrify our fleet vehicles in order to provide more efficient services and potentially save money over in the future. And we talked about vehicle utilization, performance metrics, emission maintenance cost, battery life, total cost of ownership for the electric, hybrid, gasoline, and diesel vehicles so that we can compare those moving forward. Committee requested that future reports include the baseline and per vehicle comparisons, as well as separate light-duty vehicle data, electricity and fuel costs, hybrid performance, maintenance expenses, and fleet replacement considerations. We had a lot of good data, and overall it's positive because we are saving quite a bit on fuel costs. So this is something that we will continue to explore and discuss. We also had an update regarding ongoing recruitment efforts for Public Works. And so talked about the organizational structure, which includes engineering, operations, policy, and performance, and potential reorganization. So the committee discussed anticipated costs, operational efficiency, staffing levels, funding sources, and public value associated with the proposed organizational changes. The committee requested additional information regarding potential position changes and budget impacts. Also, the month of August is typically a month when a lot of other committees, including the Puget Sound Regional Council, Skateboard, and various other committees, usually try to keep the month of August open without any meetings. And so following that, the Transportation and Public Works Committee will not have a meeting in August unless there is an emergency and we must have a special meeting. So no meeting forecast in August. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Kwan. The next item will be the consent agenda. Christina Gregg, yes.
The following item was reviewed at the June 25th Transportation and Public Works Committee meeting. Agenda Bill number 6946, a motion authorizing the city manager to execute interlocal agreements with Highline Water District, Midway Sewer District, and Puget Sound Energy for the airport station area pedestrian improvements project, CTAC CIP number ST-141.
Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented?
So
moved.
moved, Peter Kwan.
All right, council
Second.
members, will you unmute your mic while I'm reading the agenda, which is a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented? Those who are in favor say aye.
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 Those who are against say nay, and I will be aye. Okay, action item. Agenda Bill 6951, an ordinance authorizing city manager to execute a contract with the state of Washington for state fiscal year 2027, Washington Immigrant and Asylum Seeker Support, WAMAS, program funding, authorizing the distribution of program funding through agreements with Congolese International Network, CIN, and participating hotels, the extension of the Human Service Coordinator temporary limited term position, and amending the 2025-2026 annual budget. This will be total 15 minutes presented by our Human Service Manager, Aaron Brian Thomas, and Human Service Coordinator, Miriam Mayatari. Ms. Thomas, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mayor Egal, and good evening, council members. My name is Erin Bryant Thomas, Services Manager with the City of CTAC. I am joined by Miriam Maitiri, our Human Services Coordinator for the WAMAS program, our term limited coordinator. And tonight,
Sorry, you have.
Aaron? Yeah, we're struggling to hear you.
okay,
You're
can
cutting
we do a
in,
mic check?
you're cutting in and out.
How is now?
Speak a little bit more so we can tell.
My name is Erin Bryant Thomas.
No,
No. Okay, so how you want to handle this? Do we, okay, Miriam, can you speak?
Testing. Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yes, you are better, yeah.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Aaron, I think you have the deck up, so we could try to move forward. And if you all, maybe Aaron, you can turn off your video. We'll see if your audio works a little better that way.
Absolutely.
Okay,
If you
perfect.
can get us started, I'll go ahead and share the screen.
Please,
Thank you
thank
so
you.
much.
and Aaron, without your video, I think you sounded a lot better.
Oh, thank you, Christina. All righty. Well, I just wanted to send greetings and just extend my gratitude to the council for allowing us to come before you this evening. I'm getting our presentation up and ready. One moment. Okay, I am also getting an error message. Stand by.
Miriam, this is Mayor Egal. So your microphone is good. If you can start and Aaron can actually when she fixes her computer, she can join you.
Absolutely. Aaron, I can share my screen and start the deck if that works for you.
Let me make one more attempt. Here we go.
Okay.
How's that screen share coming over?
Yes.
Okay. All right, we'll start right here at page 2. Is audio still okay and visual look good?
Yeah.
Thank you for your patience. So the purpose of tonight's presentation is to present Agenda Bill 6951, which is an ordinance authorizing the city manager to 1, sign the contract between the state and the city of SeaTac, 2, sign the contracts between the city of SeaTac and our subcontractor and our hoteliers, and 3, extend the Human Services Coordinator TLT position and amend the 2025-26 biennial budget. This builds on the Parks and Rec Committee review back on July 9th and highlights some of the changes that have occurred since then. Let's go. And I'll pass it over to Miriam to take us through the meat of the presentation this evening. Miriam?
Absolutely. So as you may have seen, initially our Parks and Recreation council members and the committee had actually put this item on the consent agenda, but as staff, we pulled it off because there were some changes that we wanted to bring forward to the full council and really describe what has changed since a couple of weeks ago when we did go to Parks and Recreation on July 9th. The first thing that has been updated by the state is the program scope. As you all are aware, the city of SeaTac has been providing emergency housing. The state has approached all the housing providers and asked to merge those 2 outcome areas.
I want to take a 5 minutes recess.
Okay.
All right. And you can fix it your computer or microphone, actually.
All right, not a problem.
It is 7:42. We are going to reconvene our council meeting on July 28, 2026. Our council members are in the center. Actually, we are meeting today in the CETA Community Center. So, Miriam and Ms. Brian Thomas, it is all yours.
Thank you so much. Can you hear us okay? Oh, Aaron, I think I cut you off. I'm sorry.
I was just saying awesome. Thank you so much and welcome back, everyone. One of the things that I did want to make sure that I touched on was the importance of why we are presenting before you today. And so in alignment with our goals, goal number 1, which is building effective and accountable government, managing the grant and implementing the WAMAS project really demonstrates the city's ability to deliver on state-funded initiatives, ensuring transparency, accountability, and responsiveness to community needs, and increasing community trust. And secondly, creating and preserving housing. And so the project directly addresses the critical need for housing solutions, helping to provide stable living conditions for asylum seekers while preserving housing resources in the region. It also ensures access to all to adequate, safe, and affordable housing and basic human services. So I didn't want to miss that opportunity, recognizing we have a limited amount of time, but these are 2 of the goals that we are striving to achieve, and that's why this issue is important this evening. Miriam?
Thank you, Aaron. So as we mentioned, this item had previously been placed on the consent agenda, but we are wanting to come in front of the council because there are a few things that have changed since we went to Parks and Recreation on July 9th. The first is the program scope. Initially, this item was reviewed as an emergency hotel or emergency housing assistance. Since then, the state has changed the scope to include stable housing, meaning housing navigation. So our case navigators will not only be supporting folks in emergency housing, but also guiding them through the process of getting and securing stable housing. Additionally, there has been that funding decrease. We initially mentioned that we've been awarded previously larger amounts this year. It is down to $500,000, which has a direct impact across all the areas of our budget. That includes the direct assistance, administrative, and operational budget costs, which directly impact staff time. Lastly, we're coming to you with a few options. There were discussions internally, and the team has come up with 3 options that we want to present to council tonight for their consideration, given the expanded scope and the reduced administrative and operations capacity. So we're going to take a quick step back and look at state fiscal year 26, or year 2 of this project. State fiscal year 26 just concluded in June. It ran from July 1st of 2025 till June 30th of 2026. We were awarded $750,000 by way of a contract amendment. We served 114 asylum-seeking families in that time period. We partner with the Congolese Integration Network to continue providing culturally responsive services. This included meals, transportation, interpretation, some light case management, which included getting folks connected with food benefits, medical benefits, education, getting kids enrolled in school, adults into adult education, with also some job readiness activities happening through the CIN network of support. We also work to strengthen our regional partnerships. We do see this as we take a regional approach. We are part of a network of different providers as well as the state. And so we were working to learn best practices and share best practices in that time. That proved really, really important in state fiscal year 26, given the fiscal volatility of human services as a sector, but also the ever-changing policies at the federal level that had a direct impact on human services here in the state of Washington, and particularly our human services budget as well at the state level. But all in all, CTAC continues to be a trusted leader in supporting asylum-seeking communities. We continue to be the only city that stepped up, raised our hand to say that we want to support this work and applied for these funds. And other cities followed suit, primarily the city of Seattle, which is also providing some similar services. So looking ahead at state fiscal year 27, what's going to be our role? As we mentioned, the state has merged the housing services that were provided before. If you may recall, before, emergency housing was separate from stable housing. Now both of those has been merged to migrant housing services. That includes the navigation piece in addition to the emergency housing. Referred participants will get 30 days of emergency shelters. It's up to 30 days. The state is giving us a lot of flexibility this year. If on day one someone is housing ready, they don't need emergency housing, maybe they may already have a steady stream of income through employment, we have authorization to immediately get them into housing navigation services and help them stabilize sooner than that 30 days. So we don't have an obligation for folks to be in a hotel awaiting stable housing up, at that 30-day marker. Folks will still continue to receive case management and legal services. And if they do need services beyond the service period, meaning if their allotment of rental assistance or their legal needs do expand, the state has, again, extended flexibility for participants to come back and continue receiving those services, considering the current climate. Again, the big thing we want to make sure we mention here is that the city's scope has gone beyond emergency housing, and it includes housing navigation as part of the outcome area. Again, ongoing changes and implications. We have that funding decrease we mentioned, but with that decrease has also we've also seen a decrease in our the expectations that the state has of us for performance. This new fiscal year, we are being asked to serve 34 households in a combination of emergency and housing navigation with those reduced dollars. And again, the operations and administrative costs have been cut down to $150,000. In our negotiations with the Congolese Integration Network, we have landed at $90,000, retaining the city of SeaTac retaining $90,000 and $60,000 going to the Congolese Integration Network for staffing. That translates to about 31.8 hours per week for city of SeaTac staffing to support this project. A bit more about the staffing impact again. We have seen that reduction in the administrative side of things down to 31.8 hours per week. That roughly translates to about 605 hours in the first part of the state fiscal year 27, which is August to December of this year. And then next year, 2027, that'll be 580 hours. Again, 90K designated to support the position. And so internally, we're having conversations around what that does look like in terms of the scaled administrative capacity while weighing the expanded program requirements and also supporting the Congolese Integration Network as they advance this work in partnership with the city. So let's shift gears a little bit to the documents that we have in front of you. We have an ordinance as well as a few contracts. This ordinance authorizes the city manager to amend the interlocal agreement with DSHS ORIA, the Office of Refugee and Immigrant Assistance at the state level for state fiscal year 27. The ordinance also authorizes City Manager Young to execute contracts with the Congolese Integration Network for services on the ground operations, and also 2 designated hoteliers to provide the emergency housing aspect of the work. It also extends the temporary limited term human services position and amends the city's 2025 to 2026 biennial budget. So again, those are the ordinance, contract with CIN, as well as our contracts with our 2 hoteliers for a total of 4 contracts. Aaron, if you don't mind speaking to this. So again, the staff did come together and come up with 3 options that we would like to present to the council for consideration today in terms of guidance on how to move forward given this new changes that have been presented to the city.
Yeah, thank you so much, Miriam. So council members, we have before you 3 options. Option number 1 would be to authorize the execution of the state fiscal year 27 WAMAS agreement and direct staff to prepare a decision card regarding General Fund 001 resources to supplement the Human Services Coordinator TLT position, maintain staffing capacity, but additional funding is not guaranteed and will require future council approval. So that's option number 1. Option number 2, authorize execution of the agreement and direct the city manager to engage the state regarding additional administrative funding or further reductions to required outcomes and scope. And lastly, option number 3, decline to authorize execution of this agreement. The city would forfeit $500,000 in state funding and discontinue the city-administered WAMAS program. All right, and the last time we were before you, again, we were there at the Parks and Recreation Committee meeting on July 9th, and the Parks and Rec Committee reviewed the state fiscal year 27 WAMAS program and the associated grant award. The committee recommended forwarding the item to the consent agenda, and staff, since that meeting, staff received additional clarification, as Miriam shared, and we've prepared this presentation to provide to council just a quick overview of the changes, the funding impacts, and operational considerations for your review. And so tonight, we are asking for you all to provide direction to us on the 3 alternatives. And so option number 1, 2, or 3, regarding the execution of state fiscal year 27 WAMAS agreement, Agenda Bill 6951, and the related budget amendment. Staff is recommending that council direction requested on options 1 through 3. And I've already stated the other considerations below. We are happy to answer questions, and we do want to acknowledge that we have received questions from Councilmember Kanya back on July 9th that we believe we've addressed. And then we received some questions today from Councilmember Vinson that we hope we answered some of those questions. And if not, we're happy to follow up in writing. But I would love to open it up to full council for any questions that you all may have. Thank you for the opportunity.
Mayor, may I ask a clarifying question of her, please? I know it's out of the ordinary, but I'm trying to clarify with the 3 options, if option 1 is what is in the packet already, so that when you make a motion, that you're making a motion based on what's on here, and then you would, if you want to do one of the alternatives, you would make an amendment. Is that correct, Aaron?
That is correct, Christina, and I appreciate you offering that clarification.
Thank you.
Okay, so question and answer. Councilman Konya.
Mayor, can I get a motion first, please?
Okay, so do I have a motion to pass agenda bill? Am I ahead of my, no, agenda bill number 69251?
So move.
Okay, I just need a second.
Second.
Okay, you make a motion and Peter can second it, or I can second it, right?
So this is a motion for all 3 options. Can you clarify this?
I am not 100% sure. Aaron, are you able to respond to that?
Yes, we are seeking council guidance and direction on how you all would like for us to proceed. We were originally on consent agenda, but based on what we've shared with you this evening, we would like for the council to provide guidance to us on how you would like staff to proceed.
So the question, the next step is that we have to accept it to discuss this. And I have to have a motion and second. Then we will discuss these three options. And then we will make recommendation on how to proceed one of those options. Am I right, Christina?
Yes.
Beautiful. So do I have a motion to discuss this?
To pass the agenda bill as it was presented.
I motion to pass the agenda bill as presented.
Okay, do I have second?
Okay, I'll second that.
Beautiful. Now we can talk about everything else. Okay, good. Okay, so I will start the council member, Konya.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Miriam and Aaron, for this presentation and specifically pulling this from consent so that we can discuss given the changes. I really appreciate sharing this with the council in this capacity. This started as a grant, and from my understanding, we are requesting, or we are exploring if CTAC will devote some of its general fund to make up the difference in what the state has presented. I very much so believe in this initiative, and I know that the state is hurting for money, and so I know that this is a very important conversation. I mean, all cities are kind of looking for ways to save. But this gives me pause because I also don't like hearing that we hear this all the time in social services. Can we spend less on people doing the work and give them more work to do? I really, really don't like that. And so I'll start with, I'm interested in pursuing how we can continue this program, because I do believe in it, but we're looking for additional administrative funding because the two hotels are outside the city of SeaTac. I'm curious if there's ways we can collaborate with the cities that we're connecting these residents to, or just being creative. I think SeaTac has, in my opinion, has a reputation for being creative in this way. So I would really like to pursue option 2, but my other reservations are if we do take on a project that increases scope, very candidly, is it reasonable to assume that we could do that work properly? We had a fantastic audit from DSHS that you all shared at the Parks and Rec meeting. And I don't want to boil this all down to just getting a perfect audit every time. That's an amazing goal to have, but can we do good work with this increased scope and reduction in staff?
Aaron, I believe Council Member Konya asked you a question. Or
Thank you.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if you were making a statement or posing that question to
both,
us.
I think. But
Yeah.
in the work that you guys do every single day, you see how much time you are putting towards each task. Do you believe that with this increased scope that and reduced hours for our team, does that bode well for our ability to deliver on these services for people who are in a pretty high stress crisis environment?
Yeah, no, you bring up a really good point, asking, folks to do more with less. We've been in those situations before, particularly in the human services, field of work, where we have these ebbs and flows of resources and resource constraints. But it is extremely difficult to do good work, really culturally specific and relevant work, being highly compliant and, to the point you made, going through, an audit with no findings. It does require a significant amount of work and a dedicated individual to ensure that, our reporting and our fiscal stewardship and bottom line, the well-being of the individuals we're serving is intact. And so, it is something very difficult. But I would say it is difficult to do this work. at a reduced rate, but it would be even more difficult to do this work, for it to be non-existent. I hope that answers your question.
It does. And does this, from the presentation, I'm understanding that this increased scope is due to working through the state's migrant housing model? Is that an okay initial assumption to make?
Miriam, do you want to take that piece?
Yes, and the short answer is yes. I think what's happening at the state level, we do know that ORIA did change divisions as well, and so they're also looking at policies, new policies that they're enacting, and stability for individuals is a big thing that folks are talking about right now, given the changes brought on by the One Big Beautiful Bill and its impacts locally. And so, given that the state is changing its model to really focus on that stability piece, there has been that request for providers to shift and really focus on not just the triage aspect of housing, but also what does long-term stability look like for households.
Okay, so the state's migrant housing model is increasing capacity in the long-term stability.
That is correct.
Okay.
So a bigger portion of the budget has been dedicated towards the direct assistance. Just for context, previous years, 60% to 65% was dedicated towards housing of the budget. This year, 70% of the budget is dedicated directly towards those housing costs or direct assistance, specifically to address that stability piece. What we did see was folks were coming back to providers asking for a little bit of more support to help them in achieving that self-sufficiency. And so the idea is to front load that support so folks can achieve stability and self-sufficiency much quicker and more long-lasting and meaningful stability.
Thank you. And just to make sure that we're using the same vocabulary, when you say stability, are you talking about participants who maintain status in this program or as connected to this initiative? Like those individuals, like when we're talking about stability and we're reporting out the outcomes of this, is this like people housed or is this people who are continuing to receive services connected to this initiative? I'm sorry, does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. And I hope I can answer your question better. So stability in this context goes beyond the program participation period. That means when we say we've closed out a case, this person, navigated through the different stages of the program. They came into emergency housing. They were then assigned a case manager. They then secured an apartment, they got a job, and they were exited out. Stability is looking at throughout that continuum of services and beyond. So stability is being measured by re-engagement. How often are folks coming back to providers to say, hey, I've hit a stumbling block. This is what's going on. This is why I need additional services. So re-engagement is really the measure of stability. Are folks having to, give up their apartments? Are folks slipping back into homelessness? What is really happening? And so stability and self-sufficiency, again, are just marked by re-engagement. How often are folks re-engaging with us to ask for additional services? And to what extent can the program provide those additional services, even beyond the City of SeaTac support, really the program as a whole statewide?
Okay, thank you. That does clarify. I agree that the stability is important because, as you're saying, if folks are continuing to re-engage services, it sounds like maybe the initial services didn't meet the need that maybe that they had. That being said, I know that there's a lot of questions because I have also seen the emails, so I don't want to take up too much time, but I guess for clarity, I'm very interested in finding creative ways to support this. I am cautious because I recognize that this being a grant, I know that we're going into our budget. I'd just rather, if we are going to put SeaTac dollars, that we enter it into a position where we have more control over what is happening. Because I do really care about, like you mentioned, the stability of residents. And if every year we're like, how much funding are we getting? Is the state going to like slow roll every year, give us less and less funding until we just acquire this program? I would rather have that conversation first as opposed to just piecemealing it over time. Because like I said, this is, as we know, our community utilizes these services. They're so important. But when it comes to an unreliable budget year after year, that impacts the stability of people. So again, I appreciate you bringing this forward and the transparency around the changes since we last discussed in the Parks and Rec Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member and Konya. Council Member Kwan.
Thank you. So yeah, this is a complex issue. Obviously, I am very supportive of immigration. I'm an immigrant myself, and I believe immigration has an overall positive impact on our community and our country and all of that stuff. So I remember when we first had this discussion a few years ago, the state offered this grant money to the city saying, hey, we've got this crisis. We have this money available. Perhaps we can partner and help and all of that stuff. And at the time, it was a crisis. We had to move quickly, and the proposed program was fully funded. So it did not cost the city anything. Okay, it was fully funded. And so I said, okay, let's do this. Let's make sure we have an exit strategy at the end of the day so that we don't, years down the line end up, holding the check, having to pay the bill. And it looks like that's happening right now. So during that time, I have reached out to the state and organizations. So the way this, WAMAS, which is the Washington Migrant and Asylum Seeker, support program works is the state of Washington actually administers this program and the grant funding, and they have partner organizations which they call spoke organizations. And so there's a bunch of them listed. I'm already familiar with many of these, and I'm sure some of you are. Catholic Community Services of Western Washington, and one of them, there's the Refugee Women's Alliance, REWA. There's the Immigrant and Refugee Committee Organization. There's the International Rescue Committee, IRC, which is actually, they have offices here in SeaTac in our very own city. The Northwest Immigrant Rights Project. There's a whole list of organizations that are receiving direct grant funding from the state and our partner spoke organization. The Congolese Integration Network is not one of them. And the reason is because we are acting as the clearinghouse in between getting the money and then providing this and then doing some of the administrative stuff and whatnot. And as a result, we're in a position, like we're in the position we are in today. So all of these organizations are doing great work. I have no doubt about that. They're doing very important work, very critical. Years ago, we had a similar situation where the federal government issued passports, and they asked the city and other cities, hey, would you be willing to administer and issue passports on our behalf, and we'll give you money. And so the federal government would give us money, and people can come to the city hall and apply for a passport or renew a passport or whatever, and we would do the administrative work and provide the passport on behalf of the federal government. Over time, they started paying us less and less money. So we ended up subsidizing that process where it cost us more to actually do the work for the federal government than they were actually reimbursing us. So our staff so we had to subsidize that using our general fund. So at that time, we evaluated that and we said, okay, this is really not working out. And so it's the federal government's role to do this. You guys do this. We're not going to do this on your behalf anymore because you're not paying us enough to do this, right? So we don't have money now. We are looking at a budget shortfall. We're talking about a potential tax increase by implementing a B&O tax now, okay, providing potential additional burden on our local business owners. And so this is unsustainable funding. So the state and us use temporary one-time relief money to build what looks like now a permanent program without a plan to pay for these, once the temporary funds ran out, right? And this is a common mistake that a lot of governments do. So we know that the state has a lack of budget discipline. Spending is out of control. Revenue is at an all-time increase, but spending is even outpacing that. So in this particular case, the state is actually offloading the state's own financial burden on our city and our residents. Okay, and so the question is very simple. The question is, are we willing to subsidize the state? And I think the answer is no here. Okay, so just like the passport, issuing passports and administering passports is the federal government's job, and they should be doing that. And if they want us to do it, that's fine as a value add as long as we're fairly compensated. In this particular case, this is the state's job. And if they want us to do this, I will happily do this as long as we are fairly compensated. Okay, so that's my position on this. I would be okay with exploring option number 2, which is we go back to the state and we say, hey, look, this is what it's going to cost with all this added stuff. You need to pay for this. But if the answer at the end of the day is no, then our answer should be, well, then we can't afford to do this. We just can't afford it. So thank you.
All right, Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Aaron, and I did send in a set of questions earlier today, and I do realize there probably wasn't enough time to get a response, but I do want to ask a few questions. Looking at the materials here, of the 114 households we served for state fiscal year 2026, how many are in permanent housing today? Do we know?
We do. All of them were successfully housed as of May 31st this year. So about a month before the end of the fiscal year, we were able to ensure everybody had a signed lease and a stable apartment, whether they were sharing with friends or a family. Either way, every one of those households was in stable housing by the end of the fiscal year.
Thank you. And for the record, can we define what a household is? Is that a family of 3, 4, one individual? How do we clarify that or classify that?
Mindful of technical issues. I know the team has assembled several answers for you, Council Member. I want to provide an opportunity for that while they are sharing the information that they were able to gather. If I could also invite our Deputy City Manager, Tiffany Washington, to the podium. She and I have had conversations on this topic and want to make sure that we're presenting the most factual record for you, your consideration and deliberations tonight.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I think it'd be safer to answer your questions because we're convoluting 2 systems. There's a homelessness system where households are defined very specifically.
Yes.
And then there's the migrant program, and I'm not sure that those definitions align, as well as the definition of permanent housing, because permanent housing can't be counted as permanent housing unless someone is still housed after 6 months.
Okay.
Because if they're not, that equates to a return to homelessness. So you can't determine if the program is successful unless the person is permanently housed. I do want to go back to Councilmember Kwan, one thing that you asked. As of now, no one is enrolled in this program. We successfully, as determined by Miriam, exited everyone out. So the question that you all have to ask yourselves is, do you want to fill the program back up with less funding, which then could lead to you holding the bag? Because of the heart and the values that CTAC council members hold, once we enroll new people, we will consider them our responsibility until they're stable. we're not holding the bag right now because we successfully have housed everyone. So to me, that is the crux of the decision, which is once you say yes and you sign on the dotted line, you are saying yes to bringing in new clients that we will be responsible for until they are permanently housed as defined in the grant. And so to me, it warrants, if I may, I don't know how this works in CTAC, but I think it warrants going back to the state and saying, this is your priority that we support. You should fund it fully. And if not, you could either reduce reduce what you're asking us to do to align with the funding you're giving us. Because right now they're giving us outcomes are here and the funding is here. And they either need to increase the funding to meet the outcomes or decrease the outcomes to where it's achievable. You cannot do what's in this current contract with a staff person working 31 hours a week when you've added permanent housing. So that's the other distinction. Permanent housing was not on CTAC in the previous contract.
Correct.
They've added it. And as someone who's worked in permanent housing, that is the hardest outcome to achieve, the hardest. And so I'll pause there and see. So I want them to answer your questions, but I want them to be technically correct in terms of the definition of a household, the definition of permanent housing, and then based on those definitions, how many people have been permanently housed.
Thank you, Deputy City Manager Washington, for making those distinctions. For me personally, I think if we do have an opportunity to house individuals in our community, we should do so. But I want to also recognize that we may not have the funding. So a question I have is, if we were to accept, what is it, the $500,000 here, what exposure do we have in terms of we would be on the hook to continue to provide services? How much is that? How do we quantify that?
We can find that out. I think the first question is, how many people are residents of CTAC? Because I agree with your assumption that we are responsible to house the people in CTAC. The referrals that the state sends can come from anywhere.
Okay.
So that's, I think the first question is, how do we guarantee that the referrals that you send us are people impacted in CTAC? And then you can answer the question, how much would it cost to serve the CTAC person? I think it's hard because they're immigrants. So they came here and, you know, they were divided amongst cities that had willing mayors and city councils to take them in. And so I don't think they're technically a resident. The question could be, where are they at now? What shelter are they at, or where are they physically located? And then if there are any of them physically located in CTAC or a neighboring city, I think giving you that information would be helpful.
It absolutely would. And right now, I'm just looking at my colleagues, I'm leaning towards, I believe, option 2, directing our city manager to go back to the state and try to negotiate some better terms, because I want to house our residents and also just the community at large who needs this resource. And if we have the ability to do so, we should seriously consider it.
And it doesn't preclude you from later funding it either. So it just says you just are negotiating.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. There's some background that we have not mentioned here. So when we experienced a large number of immigrants in 2025, most of them were in Seattle and CTAC. They were roaming around our streets. The King County did some work. Seattle actually did some work. And this council made commitment actually to treat these people humanely, as a human being who come in our community. We didn't bring them, we didn't invite them, but we as a council decided to treat them as a human being, you know, help them to settle where they want to settle. We were the only city that went to the state and asking money, because it was very difficult. There was different providers. No one knows what they are doing, because it's new things actually, right? We got $750,000. Actually, we use it wisely and responsibly. That's why we those who have used this program are now in their homes. Most of them have jobs. All of them had their immigration court and their immigration papers. They get their social security, they get their IDs. Some of them buy cars. Unless this council will not do that. If the council will not do that, these people would not be where they are. So I want to give that actually put out there so people understand what we were through. This program will not be a permanent program. I cannot believe, actually I couldn't believe when I found out the state is giving 500,000 because the state budget situation is very, but the kindness and commitment from the state, they decided to give this small amounts so they can finish the job. I mean, what we have started and we were very successful. If we accepted this, we are not, let's say, the way they put it on the hook, new program, that, like the basketball that will stay in city of SeaTac for the next 20 years. Actually, I'm sure 2027, 2028, they will not fund, state budget will not fund. But at the same time, to look, there will not be a need at that time. Now, most of those people have jobs, they are in their homes, there's few who are staying with friends, coach surfing, what we call. And this program is suited for those people. How we will identify, I like them to identify that they at least staying with relatives or friends in the city of SeaTac, and they are in the process of getting jobs and getting their legal papers, all of those things. So actually, this is actually, I mean, should I say God sent us? Because these people actually came to the city hall. I was in the city hall when few of similar situation came, and I told them, go talk to Aaron Bryan Thomas, and there's no budget or funding for them. So I wanna actually mention something that Councilmember Connie said that. I was in human service very long time, 25. The states, the cities, the private charities, they give you money to do good things. What they believe in, right? Good programs, whatever. But they always cut the workers, the people who do. Look, they want to do this, but they want to say, look, we want that person to work 10 hours. I mean, how come you can work 10 hours and do all of one, So that's what they always does. And I am position number one. And the reason is that this is not continuing program. We need to finish the job that we as a council and city committee 2025. There's a small number of potential applicants actually in this city that we will need that support. And the commitment that it will come from our side is what? Position 32, it's making like a full-time position, right? What that means, it's less than even 50,000. So if I'm getting 500,000 and spend or augmented 50,000, 500,000, I will take any minute, basically. I will really, as long as I believe the program is all of those. So I will be in position 1. I don't have problem with position 2. My problem with position option number 2 is that when we go there, if they say that, look, we set the priorities, goals and the requirements is you either meet it or not meet it. If you are not doing this, then we will take out money. We lose 500,000 for what? 50,000 or 40,000 or even 30,000? I don't think, anyway, I will support number 1. And if the council majority who are in here want to actually go number 3 and decline it, it's up to them. But I will be my priority number 1, my option number 1 is my 100% support. If the majority of the council present here want to go 2, I don't mind that. Mr. Vincent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I do agree with most of what you said. But I also just wanted to clarify the email that I sent to staff. I would like to receive a response to all of the questions that I posed. And just to clarify again, we currently do not have any members in this program. Not to say that the need does not exist. And again, if we were to go with option 1 or go with option 2, once we expend the funds, the city of SeaTac is still obligated to provide these services. Is it through the end of 2027 or is it through, I think it was June 30th of 2027? Do we know?
Aaron, I think it's through June of 2027. Yep.
June
Director
30th,
Pylo.
2027.
Yes, so if we can get that estimate, I think the mayor may be in the ballpark, 50,000, 60,000. I just would like to know what we could expect coming out of our general fund as we are getting ready for our biennial budgeting. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor, it's the addition, it's the addition of permanent housing. So the last time we didn't have to permanently house them, they added that. So if we go back, it's asking them to allow us to do the same good work that we did previously. But adding the permanent housing, that's a hard job. And there's agencies that are specifically designed and built to do that. We didn't find them permanent housing. Miriam connected them to people who did permanent housing. So just want to make sure that that part is clear.
And that definition, we can ask it that the state, what do you mean permanent housing? Do you want it 5
Yep.
years or 10 years or home ownership or you want it 6 months?
Mhm.
6 months we can do within the actual 12 months contract.
Yes.
But if it's outside that,
We
then
need to
we
get-
cannot do it.
we need to
Simply, we
get
cannot
clear.
do that. And we cannot be responsible for that, to be honest. Okay, I want to recognize council member Kwan.
Thank you. So I want to clarify about the potential $500,000 grant funding. So there's at least a dozen organizations right now who are direct spoke partners with the state of Washington's WAMAS program. And these are organizations that are already equipped with, interpreters and, lawyers and, housing providers and all of that stuff. They are, because that's what they do. These community-based organizations, that's their business. Their business is, in fact, I wrote this down somewhere. It says, provides opportunities for refugees, asylum seekers, trafficking victims, and all of that. So that's what they do. Okay, that's their bread and butter. That's their primary business model. They are already direct partners with the state receiving funding. So this funding, in my mind, would be better served providing additional funding to the organizations who are already providing excellent services and have a long history of doing this to expand their existing services or potentially, expand the services according to the requirement, the additional requirement that the state is trying to have us provide, in my mind. So I just want to say that. And again, I think this is something that is it's a complex issue, but at the end of the day, the question is whether or not we're going to be subsidizing the state or not using our local taxpayers' money. And in turn, assuming the responsibility of the state. Okay, so just want to leave you with that. Thanks.
Councilmember Konya.
Thank you. And thank you, Deputy City Manager Washington, for clarifying that there are currently not people in the program. Also, just to mention that, I think that was an important point to make because I know we're really focused about the funding and just remembering that for every dollar, it is connected to a human being. So I do appreciate that we are currently not having an active program with active people we're discussing, but the potential to impact other people. And thank you again for clarifying permanent housing. I am really interested as we're negotiating with the state, what that means and what that looks like, because that's an excellent point that there are people who spend decades and are experts at navigating that. And if they're asking us to take on that, I believe in the capabilities of our program, yet I recognize how big of an ask that is. So I would very much so appreciate that specific clarification. And hearing that there's interest in option one while we are engaging the state regarding the additional funding, could we get kind of some information on if funding was allocated from the general fund, what that looks like for the budget, like what if anything might have to be deprioritized, or just like the impacts of that, whether that would make us go over budget or if we'd still stay under budget. I just want to know if we do agree to something, the repercussions that could potentially have. But that is all I wanted to add. Thank you.
Councilmember, just to clarify, telling us to write a decision card does not bind us to it. There's another step in the process where decision cards are reviewed and decided upon, and there's another time when the city manager presents his proposed budget to you all where you have another opportunity. And so directing 1 and 2 doesn't mean that you've signed on the dotted line and we have to fund the position next year.
Amazing. Thank you for the clarification.
I want to say that we are not subsidizing the state of Washington or Colorado or Maine. We are not. This is one-time funding that supports what we have done 2025 as a council, which we have made commitment to house those who are in our community, that we didn't bring them, we didn't invite them, who are in our community, and treat them humanely. So I want to make sure that we have to set the record straight. This is not a continuing program. It will not happen in 2028, 2029, or 2031. This is one time to finish what we have started 2025. Council Member Vincent.
Excellent points. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am not advocating for option 3, but I would like to know more about it and its potential impacts. If we were to decline this grant, what are the impacts to the city of SeaTac?
I would say, I think we're talking about 2 different commitments. I hear from the mayor a commitment to the immigrant community that came over at that time. Are they all housed? No. The impact to SeaTac in terms of the immigrant community members that we took on and you all took on, thank you, when asked, those people are housed. The question really is, do we want to continue doing that work with the remaining group of people that are unhoused? So the impact to SeaTac, if we declined the agreement, would be we would lose the $500,000 grant. We would not enroll new people into the program.
Would we have any staffing impacts with our TLT positions?
Well, a TLT position by nature, it's temporary. So it would mean that the staff person who's a temporary employee right now, that Miriam, her position would end at I think immediately. Gwen, would it be July 31st of this year?
July 31st of this year. And that's if we were to go with option 3. And the reason I pose this question, because I appreciate the dialogue from my colleagues here, but hearing that we have service providers who this is really their expertise. If the city of SeaTac were to forfeit this money, would the state redistribute this to them? How do we know? Or
the reason why you don't have those great people who are expertise because they don't want it. So people permanent housing is the hardest outcome to achieve. And it's a pay per performance outcome. Meaning if you have 50 people, you have to get those 50 people housed. And every time you get them housed, you can invoice for it.
Yes.
And then depending on their definition, at the 6-month mark, if they return back to homelessness, you lose a percentage of your funding. So people aren't like lining up at the door to enroll new people in permanent housing. If they were, they would have given it to them. So there's a reason why they added it. I'd love to have that conversation with the state and say, why did you add that? We were doing great
yes
with our piece. And so at minimum, say, why don't you give the permanent housing piece to the permanent housing providers? We just haven't had that conversation. I think we need to, because we are not experts in housing people. And there are many organizations that are and do it well. And Aaron, who does that now for us? Who permanently houses the people in the program?
Yeah, we have a few, and a couple of them have been offline, and Miriam can speak to that. But Congolese Integration Network is an organization that
So they
does
have
permanent
it.
housing.
Yep.
Lutheran Community Services, World Relief. There's another newer organization called Track Associates. Miriam, would you be able to speak to the other spokes that have been providing the permanent housing?
I think that's good enough, Aaron. I think the point they're trying to get to is that there are skilled providers who do this work. So interested in, if we do it, let us continue to do what we do well. And can we give the permanent housing providers funding to do what they do well and partner together to have the greater outcomes that we see right now?
Okay. And last question. So if we were to choose option 1 or option 2, this question is for staff. How confident are we that we can meet these deliverables that have been placed on us by the state of Washington?
I asked that question already to the staff. So if I may, I'd said, if we take the money we have and we don't supplement it, can you meet the outcomes? And the answer was no.
Okay. I have no further questions.
So actually, we spend quite some time on this topic, and it's very good discussion, actually. It's really knowing the information, having the information, knowing what your value is. And I want to move on this after Mr. Kwan. And the staff asked us to give them direction. So I will take each one of them, which mean is option number 1, option number 2, option number 3. And one of those options have to carry actually the majority of city council members here tonight. Okay, Mr. Kwan.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. So first, I want to clarify. I remember when the council approved the initial grant funding to basically start this process and this program was in late 2024. 2024 was when we approved this, late 2024. The crisis unfolded because of a church in the city of Tukwila, and that overflowed to neighboring cities. I followed this entire thing from the beginning. And so here we are today. But the question I have is the funding, the initial funding that we received, that we have been administering and whatnot, providing programs and permanent housing and job training, all of that stuff, legal services. So that was supposed to cover initially the initial intake group. Is that funding sufficient to complete the whole whatever outtake, whatever it's called, for that group?
Yes.
Okay, so this new funding, the 500,000, the first funding was 750,000, if I remember. Now this is 500,000. This would not be to cover the existing folks that we are already serving. It would be for new intake.
So we're not serving any existing people right now. It would be for new intake, noting that they did reduce the number of people that we would have to take in. Yes.
Right, and it would also expand
To the permanent housing.
services and all of that stuff. Okay, so at the end of the day, there's more work required for less money.
More complex work.
So we're going to have to pay to make up the difference from our own budget.
If you choose option 1, correct.
If we choose option 1,
Yes.
okay. So that's the definition of subsidizing this thing. Okay, so it sounds like we all have more questions about this. I'm not 100% ready to make a decision on this tonight. Is there a timeline when we have to make a decision?
There is, actually.
Mr. Kwan, we should ask me that question, not the staff.
We have to do it today?
So we discussed this, and it's actually a motion. We have to make a motion. We made motion, we second it, and we discussed this, and we have to go, and we have 3 choices. Christina can correct me. Take this number 1, option 1, number 2, option 2, option number 2, or option number 3. There's no other wiggle room or any other, we are very clear on. So if you finish it, I want to take it a motion to accept the funding. I have to make a motion, right? One of those, right?
So we already have a motion on the table. I believe the difference between the motion on the table and option 1 or option 2, Cindy or Jonathan can correct me if I'm wrong, is the portion about the direction.
Yes.
The direction is not included in the original motion.
Okay.
So if you want 1 or 2, you would need to amend the motion to direct the city manager or staff, depending on which one you want. The third option, I believe, would be failing the motion.
Yeah, okay, good.
Point of information, for Christina, we could also amend the motion to seek additional time. Is that correct?
I know there was a time constraint on this, so I'm gonna.
It's tied to the staffing. So the grant is tied to the staffing. So we would have to act before July 31st, or
Okay.
the funding that's tied to the staff would run out and she'd essentially be laid off.
Thank you.
Okay, so who want to make motion to accept number 1 or number 2, Mr. Vincent?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make an amendment to the motion to authorize execution of the agreement and direct the city manager to engage the state regarding additional administrative funding or further reductions to required outcomes and scope.
So do I have a second?
So
I'll second that.
just to be clear, and Cindy, again, and Jonathan, if I'm wrong, you're actually needing to amend the original motion. The original motion was to do all of that except for the direction. So the amendment would be to add the direction. Well, he's saying option 2. He said,
He combined 1 and 2, I think.
Want to do it,
so,
Councilman?
so is number 2 not including all of the contracts and everything else that it already had? It isn't?
Option 2 doesn't say that.
I know. But neither, the first one doesn't mention all the contracts either.
Option 2 is, you're saying authorize execution of the agreement. That's accepting the contract and directing the city manager to talk to the state. So it's both. I think it is what Councilmember Vincent just said.
And number 1, though, isn't
Is-
that also accepting the contract, but then doing a separate direction?
Directing the city manager to fill out a decision card, adding supplemental funding.
Okay, so if I'm understanding this correctly, option 1 and 2 both include the original motion, which was to accept it. They just have different direction. So we already have a motion on the table to do all the agreements. We now need to make an amendment related to 1 or 2 for the direction. Which direction are you wanting? So it sounded, Councilmember Vincent, that you wanted option 2.
That is correct. I want option 2.
Okay, so
Do I have?
right now I have moved by Vincent, and we'll get a second, to direct the city manager to engage the state regarding additional administrative funding or further reductions to required outcomes and scope.
So do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so, all right, okay, so let's vote for Mr. Fisher's motion.
Take the vote.
Yes, yeah.
Oh.
Your motion, you want yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, Councilmember Khan,
Yes.
Councilmember Conyer,
Yes.
and I would be no. Okay, so we will take number 2. And I want you to mention it that I voted against, and the other 3 council members who are present voted for it.
Yes, and that
Yeah.
was the vote on the amendment. I
Okay.
now need one on the motion as amended.
Okay, who want to make a motion?
We already have the motion, we just need a vote, please.
Okay, good. So, what's the second step?
We vote.
We have to put.
Yeah, so
amend-
now you're voting on the original motion, which was to pass the item,
Okay,
with the amendment, which is the direction.
okay, so, all right. So, council members, would you unmute your mic while I'm reading motion, agenda bill 6951, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with the state of Washington for fiscal year 2027 Washington Immigrant Asylum Seeker Support WAMAS program funding, authorizing the distribution of the fund through agreement with Congress and International Network, CIN, and participation hotels. And then I will take out the extension, the extension of the human service position, because that's not on the second option.
No, that one's
It's concluded.
also included.
Okay.
All of those are
It's all
included
included.
in one
Okay,
or
good.
two.
All right, and the extension of human service coordinator temporary limited and term TLT position, and amending the 2025-2026 biannual budget for those who are.
And, sorry,
With,
and the amendment part, which is directing the city manager to engage the state regarding additional administrative funding or further reductions to required outcomes in scope.
as Christina said it. Okay, good. For those who are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I will be no.
Nay.
Okay, so that means it's failing. That's what I was saying.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. So it's failing.
So now you don't have it's another thing that's passed.
What's that? Nothing passed, basically. Yeah. It failed, yes. That's what I was doing. Yeah. All right, okay. So, which means that we declined the 500,000 and we'll go back to the state of Washington, and good luck in the state of Washington. Right? Very good. I love the law. Okay, all right. Going to committee members. Okay, that we move on. Okay, unfinished business. It seems to me there's no unfinished business. And council members, do you have any comments or questions? It seems to me that no one has, and I will call adjourn this meeting 8:48. Remove it.